Have you ever opened the fridge and found a carton of milk that expired yesterday? Or looked at that loaf of bread bought a few weeks ago and thought, can I still eat this? Most Americans have faced this exact doubt. The result? Premature disposal of food that, in many cases, is still safe to eat. And you? Do you usually trust the dates on the packaging? Or have you ever eaten food after the printed date had already passed? Share your experience because it may help others who are also watching. This behavior has enormous consequences. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, nearly 40% of all food produced in the United States is wasted each year. To give you an idea, that equals about 133 billion pounds of food thrown away annually, USDA 2020. And we are not just talking about losses in restaurants or supermarkets. Research shows that 37% of this waste happens inside consumers' own homes. In other words, we ourselves are largely responsible for this significant part of the problem. But here comes the most surprising fact. According to the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, 2019, about 20% of food thrown away at home was discarded simply because consumers misinterpreted the dates printed on the packaging. The confusion about label dates. When you see the phrases sell by, best if used by, or use by on a package, it's natural to believe they all indicate a food safety risk. But in practice, that's not what happens. Sell by, this date was not created for you, the consumer, but for retailers. It's a suggested shelf display period to ensure products are sold while still in good condition. Best if used by or best before, these indicate the period when the food will be at its best quality and freshness. But attention, it does not mean the food has spoiled after that date. It may lose texture, aroma, or flavor, but it remains safe. Use by. This is the manufacturer's recommended date for consumption, generally related to peak quality. The only exception in the US, where this phrase has a direct link to safety, is infant formula, which is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. And here lies the major issue. There is no federal standardization for these terms in the United States. The FDA requires printed dates only for infant formula. For other foods, each company defines its own system based on internal quality tests, often in very conservative ways. This generates mass confusion. According to the National Resources Defense Council, NRDC 2017, more than 70% of American consumers believe these dates are directly tied to food safety. As a result, millions of tons of food still fit for consumption are discarded every year. How did it all begin? Until the early 20th century, people bought food directly from local fairs and markets. Shoppers could judge freshness by looking at the color, smelling, or even tasting. The path between producer and consumer was short, but with the growth of cities and the rise of supermarkets, reality changed. Processed and packaged foods filled the shelves, making it harder to judge a product's age. In the 1970s, with increased demand for transparency, the concept of open dating was introduced. The idea was simple: allow consumers to see an estimated freshness date. However, this system was never designed for food safety. Instead, it was based on marketing strategies and quality assurance. Here's a little discussed point. Manufacturers have an interest in setting shorter dates. Why? Because this increases the likelihood that consumers will always experience the product at peak quality and return to buy more. The result? Billions of dollars in food discarded unnecessarily. What does science say about expired food? Several studies show that many foods remain safe long after the printed date. 1. Refrigerated eggs. When stored at 40 degrees, they can last up to 5 weeks after purchase. USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service. 2. Frozen meats. According to the USDA, they can be kept indefinitely in the freezer in terms of safety, though sensory quality, texture, and flavor may degrade. 3. Dry goods such as rice, pasta, and crackers. They can last months or even years beyond the date. The main change is loss of crispness or flavor. 4. Canned foods remain safe for years. The only caution is to discard cans showing rust, swelling, or leakage. USDA shelf-stable food safety. On the other hand, some exceptions require caution. in 1. Ready-to-eat salads, fresh meats, seafood, and unpasteurized cheeses. These are high-risk foods for bacteria such as Listeria, monocytogenes, Salmonella, and E. coli. 2. Raw milk, directly associated with foodborne illness outbreaks. 3. Fresh fruits and vegetables must be discarded if they show mold, foul odor, or slimy texture. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC 2022, emphasizes that high-risk foods can transmit disease even before changes in smell or taste appear. What if I told you that the same confusion we have with food also happens with medications? Except in this case, the impact is even greater because it can involve direct risks to health. Who hasn't opened the medicine cabinet, found an expired pill, and wondered, can I still take this, or could it be dangerous? This question is critical because it involves not only the risk of waste, but also the efficacy and safety of medical treatments. And you? Have you ever taken a medication past its expiration date? Did it work or did it have no effect? Share your experience in the comments because it helps many people better understand this dilemma. The origin of expiration dates in medications. Just like with food, expiration dates on medications did not appear overnight. Until the mid-20th century, there was no clear standard on how long a drug would remain effective. It was only in 1979 that the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, required all medications in the United States to carry an expiration date on their packaging. This period generally ranges from 12 to 60 months from the date of manufacture and is defined by the manufacturer. Based on stability studies conducted under controlled conditions of temperature, light, and humidity. The initial goal was simple: to guarantee that the medication, up until that date, would maintain 100% proven efficacy and safety. But in practice, this created a mistaken perception that the day after expiration, the drug automatically became dangerous or useless. What science has actually discovered. One of the largest studies on the subject was conducted by the FDA itself in partnership with the Department of Defense, known as the Shelf Life Extension Program, SLEP. This program tested more than 100 drugs stored for long periods, many of them in military stockpiles. The results, published in JAMA Internal Medicine, Cantrell et al., 2012, were surprising. 1. About 90% of the medications tested remained stable and effective for 1 to 15 years after their official expiration date. 2. Only a minority showed significant degradation that compromised treatment. These findings challenge the idea that expiration dates are a rigid line between safe and dangerous. Which medications are more stable? Stability depends on the pharmaceutical form and the type of active ingredient. 1. Tablets and capsules, generally very stable. Studies show that common painkillers like ibuprofen and acetaminophen can remain effective for years after expiration, provided they are stored properly. Bailey et al., Annals of Pharmacotherapy, 2000. 2. Lyophilized powder medications, such as certain antibiotics in powder form for reconstitution, tend to remain stable until mixed with liquid. After dilution, the shelf life drops drastically. 3. Sensitive injectables. Cases like insulin and epinephrine are very delicate, losing potency quickly after expiration and must be discarded. 4. Liquid antibiotics. Suspensions such as amoxicillin are unstable and may lose effectiveness within weeks, even before expiration, if not refrigerated. 5. Sublingual nitroglycerin. Another example of a medication extremely sensitive to light and heat, losing potency much earlier than most drugs. When the risk is real, although many medications simply lose strength over time, some can pose serious risks when degraded. 1. Tetracycline, an older antibiotic. Reports show that some degraded batches caused Fanconi syndrome, a severe kidney injury. Annals of Pharmacotherapy, 2000. 2. Liquid antibiotic suspensions. May fail to properly treat infections if they lose potency, increasing the risk of bacterial resistance. 3. Insulin. Loss of potency can pose immediate danger for diabetic patients. That's why the FDA Ed.S official guidance continues to be not to use medications after the expiration date, especially in serious clinical situations. Economic and social impact. This issue involves not only health, but also money. the Government Accountability Office, GAO 2017, estimated that military stockpiles could save hundreds of millions of dollars per year if expiration extensions were applied more broadly. In hospitals and pharmacies, tons of still active medications are discarded annually, representing billions of dollars in waste. For ordinary consumers, the problem also hits the wallet. Many throw away drugs that could still be effective, only to purchase them again. Donations and legislation. Unlike food, the redistribution of expired drugs is practically prohibited in the US, precisely because of stability concerns. However, some states have drug donation programs for medications still within expiration and unused, aiming to help vulnerable populations. How to store medications to preserve them longer. A decisive factor for the durability of a medication is how it is stored. Research from the FDA and the American Pharmacists Association reinforces: 1. Always keep them in a cool, dry place protected from light. 2. Avoid bathrooms, where humidity and temperature fluctuate greatly. 3. Prefer closed cabinets out of children's reach. 4. Always keep them in the original packaging, which protects against degradation. These simple precautions can prolong the effectiveness of a drug, even if the official label does not reflect it. Connection with food waste. Just like food, expiration dates on medications were created to protect consumers, but also generated a system of mass waste. For food, the consequence is environmental and economic impact. For drugs, the consequence is financial waste in healthcare systems and for patients themselves. While experts push for clearer labeling standards for food, the debate around medications is more complex. It involves pharmacology, public safety, and regulation. What this means for you. The final message is balanced. For food, you can rely on your senses, smell, appearance, texture, and use common sense. Many products will still be good after the date. For medications, the official recommendation remains to discard after expiration. But science shows that, in many cases, they do not immediately become toxic. They may simply lose potency. This means that in emergency situations, some expired drugs may still have an effect, but this decision should never replace professional medical guidance. In the end, both with food and with medications, the truth is simple. Expiration dates are a reference, not a life or death line. They indicate the period of guaranteed effectiveness and quality, but do not mean that the very next day the product automatically becomes dangerous. With knowledge, we can reduce waste, save money, and most importantly, make safer choices. If this video opened your mind about the expiration of food and medications, leave a like, share it with someone who always throws food or medicine away, and subscribe to the channel. Together we can fight waste and make smarter decisions for our health and for the planet. Support our channel. Check the pinned comment below to learn how.